In 1996, two college students discovered the remains of a skull along the Columbia River in Kennewick, Washington. Eventually, the skull was taken to the local law enforcement by the college students. With homicide as the key motive in mind, law officials launched a dive team who eventually discovered 350 bones, which was about 90% of the human remains. It was obvious at this point that these remains were not that of a homicide, although it was reported that the skull was smashed in, but that these remains were that of someone's life and past history. James Chatter, a forensic archaeologist, eventually ended up with a remarkable find. After studying the bones and skulls of what is now famously known as Kennewick Man, he concluded the following. 1. The bones were discovered with the help of Irv Taylor and his radiocarbon laboratory. 2. That the bones were over 9,000 years old. The remains ended up at the Smithsonian Institute. Other characteristics that were named by Chatter were that the remains were of that of a man with Caucasian traits between the ages of 40 to 55 and about 5 feet 9 inches. These conclusions seem valid, so it was discovered that the remains had a cascade point enlarged into its hip. The cascade point was a weapon known to be associated with Native Americans living in the Pacific Northwest. Once the remains were found and began to be studied, the coalition of Columbia River Band Indian tribes heard about the find. The tribe immediately claimed the remains. However, Chatter did not conclude that the remains contained any Native American characteristics, and so the controversy begins. It has been a well-established custom and view of Indian tribes that the excavation of Indian remains is a violation of sacred religious beliefs and practices among Native Americans. According to the Native American religion, most Native American tribes believe that the souls of the dead pass into a spirit world and become part of a spiritual force that influences every aspect of their lives. Many tribes also believe in two souls. One that died when the body died, and one that might wander on and eventually die. During the 19th century, there were plenty of horror stories about grave digging and stealing by anthropologists and collectors who would dig up the remains of Indians for the purpose of study. Some even decapitated the heads of Indians in order to study Native American history. When Kennewick Man was discovered, the Native Americans wanted to claim the remains, understandably, rebury Kennewick Man as a religious tradition practiced by Native Americans. By 2013, innovation and technology improved the way genealogy is studied, providing that the Kennewick Man remains contain the DNA mostly of Native American Indian, including those of which were of the Columbia River region. Radiocarbon revealed his age at 8,500 years old, and he is currently regarded as one of the most important skeletons ever found in North America. With these new findings, Native Americans did win the rights to Kennewick Man. It has always been my opinion that the rights of all human beings should be allowed customs, heritage, and cultural practices, especially those that are religious, such as the sacred practices of Indian burial rituals. All during the 19th century, tries of murder all over the land by the thousands, ordered to assimilate into European culture, and most, if not all, the Indian rightful lands were stolen. Again, this is my opinion, but along with many facts and convincing artifacts of history. The scientist has the credit regarding the research of genealogy. However, this leads us back to the question, who owns the rights to history and its beginnings? Certainly not Columbus of 1492. Do you